What's going on, everybody? It's your favorite YouTuber, Austin Holloman, still here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I thought it would be, you guys know I do social study videos now, right? And I thought it would be a great idea to do a social studies video about where I'm at right now in Brazil. I brought who I would consider a Brazilian travel vet. He's been to probably anywhere at least 14 to 20 cities in Brazil. He's been coming to Brazil from what I know since at least 2013. He speaks Portuguese fluently. He knows a lot about a lot in Brazil. And he's met a lot of expats in Brazil. And you guys know that I've had problems in Brazil, and some countries may have issues with foreigners coming into Brazil. So if you guys have not already, into their country, if you guys have not already, give the video a like, subscribe if you have not already. And we will go ahead and we will bring up our guest, Mr. Dennis Djeanpierre, and I will allow him to answer these questions that I have for you guys today. Sorry, let me pull this back up. Okay. What's going on?
What's happening?
How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanking God I'm back in Brazil. Thanking God.
For sure.
Yeah. So would you tell everybody who you are, what your name is, and what do you do? Where are you from? Just a little synopsis on you.
My name is Dennis Djeanpierre. I'm originally from Chicago. My tag name on YouTube is DJP, and I do mostly travel videos in various cities in Brazil. And I spent half the year in Brazil, and I share a lot with people who may not know a lot about the country, about the language, about the people. And so far, it's been an adventure.
So how many cities have you been to in Brazil?
16.
16 cities. Wow. Okay, yeah. So you like I told you guys, he has a lot of experience. So can you describe your first experience living in Brazil for, let's say, at least 3 months plus? What was it like actually living there as opposed to visiting for a week or so? And how was it different than you expected?
Well, it's one thing to vacation in a place. It's another thing to live there and go through all the ups and downs. I mean, being there, it's just like being anywhere else. You're gonna have your good days. You're gonna have your bad days. Your patience is gonna get tested. You're gonna find out a lot of things about yourself and about the people down there the longer you stay in Brazil. But overall, it's been a positive experience. I mean, I love Brazil. I'm sure. I mean, we all know that Brazil has its problems, but I think to live there is if you have the means, you can live a very good life in Brazil. A very good life, fantastic life, as a matter of fact.
I would agree. Like you said, it has its problems, and those problems can be worse maybe than they are in the States if you live in bad areas. But if you do have that money, like here in Sao Paulo, if you can afford being in Sao Paulo and afford to live, because I know a guy who pays $2,500 a month in rent. Doesn't have to do that, but he does. So it's a different. That's one thing I like about Brazil is it's very diverse. In the southern portion, it seems to be richer and it's more white, and then up north, it's I think by like Sao Luis and Recife and all that, it seems to be more of the mestiza type, and then you have Salvador that's black. Everywhere is completely different, just like the United States. So, as a Black American man, how have you been received by the Brazilian people?
I've been received very well. I mean, I'm treated with respect pretty much everywhere I go. I've never had any issues. I've never had any. Of course, racism exists in Brazil, but I've never experienced it personally. As long as I've been going there, I know it does happen. Some brothers go there and experience it for themselves, but I've never experienced it in my travels throughout Brazil.
So would you say that racism is subjective to just maybe the locals, and it's not really that likely for a foreigner?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, if you ask, for example, a Black Brazilian, they probably give you a totally different story. We're visitors to the country. We're considered visitors. We're considered gringos. We're looked at in a different light as opposed to a local. You know what I'm saying? Because there's racism in Brazil. There's also classism. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't look like a person from the hood, you probably won't get treated a certain way. Now, some guys may say differently. Some say, hey, I got treated I dress like a upscale person. I got treated some way. But overall, classism does play a favor in Brazil too, along with the racism that exists.
I would absolutely agree. So you said you've never encountered any racism in Brazil. What about xenophobia? Do you feel like Brazilians have, and I'm not saying that they do, I'm just asking what you think. Do you think that they have a sort of xenophobia like they do in
No,
Medellin, Colombia?
in general, no. I find most Brazilians to be pretty welcoming in general, and I've been all over the country. I've never most Brazilians that I've encountered have been pretty welcoming for the most part.
I would agree as well. I would agree. I think this out of 21 countries, this is still my number one country on the list that checks off the majority of the boxes. So I could agree with you on that. And I wouldn't feel that way if the people didn't feel as welcoming. Like even though I had the whole situation, I still feel like I fit right in better than anywhere
Absolutely,
else. You
absolutely.
feel
I
like
feel the
you
same
fit
way.
right in.
I feel
And
the
I
same.
and I believe it's like that because of what I said earlier is so diverse, and you can go to a city that you like. I felt I fit in Rio, but I felt like I fit in more in Salvador. It was more for me. And
Mhm.
then there's still diversity of races of people. So you don't, if you go to Kenya, if you're white and you go to Kenya, you probably won't feel as good as being in Brazil because you're going to stand out a little more. I mean, for some people they might like that, some people they might not. But I know when I was in Europe, I didn't. Yeah, at times it gets kind of old being the only black person around. So uh, but yeah. So, what aspect of Brazilian culture is most appealing to you?
It's easy to make friends. It's easy to make
Mhm,
friends. Like I said many times before, I got more friends in Brazil than I got in the United States. Just the
mhm,
welcoming culture. My personality is more compatible with Brazilian culture than, for example, American culture. American culture is very individualistic, very independent minded. Whereas in Brazil, it's more interdependent minded.
mhm.
You know what I'm saying? People need each other, or people, you know, tend to look out for each other more in Brazil than perhaps in the United States.
Would you say you noticed that when you went to Cabo Verde and Portugal? Would you say you noticed a similar culture like that?
Portugal, no. Cape Verde, yes. Cabo Verde, yes. Portugal, I found the people to be a little cold. The Portuguese
Mhm.
people, even the Brazilians over there, told me the same thing. He said the Portuguese are pretty standoffish and cold. But in Cabo Verde, I arrived there feeling like a stranger, a total stranger, and I came out of there feeling like a family member. I remember
Wow.
standing in line at the airport when I was leaving. I saw a line of people, just nothing but black people. And I said, man, these are like my cousins, my auntie and my grandmother standing in line with
Yeah.
me. That's how I felt. So it was definitely a difference.
Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with what we always say. It's like a Western or a first world problem with
Mm-hmm.
people being cold and standoffish. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think Sao Paulo is more first world, even though it's just a city. It's more first world Western like than the rest of Brazil I've been to.
Right.
And people aren't rude here, but they're definitely not the same as they are in Salvador and Rio and Recife, from what I've noticed.
True.
So, how does Brazilian culture cater or differ from American culture? Like you said, they're individualistic. Can you give me like two more examples of how Brazilian culture is different from
Well,
American?
for example, get up in the morning, go outside, you walk down the street, people make eye contact, people speak. You know, in general, a lot of places in America don't do
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
It's just a more welcoming culture. People are tend to be more curious about you. Uh, if you can speak the language, it opens a whole lot of doors for you. Uh,
mhm.
it's easier to meet people, easier to if you stop and ask somebody for directions, they're very friendly about it. They're not as standoffish. They're not as not as cold as in general American people can be.
Yeah, they'll walk you to wherever you need to go. I've
Right. They'll
noticed that.
stop whatever they're doing to help you get to where you need to go.
So, what about Brazilian culture? Would you say caters to Americans? Like, is there certain like when I was in Europe? Where was I at? Well, let me just give you another example of what I'm saying. Whenever I go to countries, there's certain things that they do that fit right in with how I did things in the United States. Do you think anything is like
I
that in Brazil that caters to Americans?
I wouldn't say they cater to Americans specifically. That's just the way they are. That's just the culture. It's a very welcoming culture in general to all people from everywhere. So I think that's just part of the culture itself.
Okay. And you already answered this question. So how do you integrate yourself into Brazilian society? Like what tips would you give somebody that wants to move to Brazil and never leave, or they want to spend a
Uh,
good amount of time there?
Learn as much of the language as you can.
Mhm.
Learn as much of the language as you can. I practice Portuguese still every day, and it's opened so many doors for me. I mean, you gain more friendships, more connections. It's just that's one of the first. That's the primary thing. Learn as much of the language as you can.
Okay, so learning language as much as you can.
Mhm.
And what are some cultural norms in Brazil that might be shocking to Americans?
Cultural norms.
Like, like the kissing thing that they do.
Like for example, with Brazil is a more kind of a romantic culture. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? I mean, for example, in the dating world, in some places, kissing is like shaking hands. I
Hmm.
mean, they if a Brazilian woman likes you, you'll know it. You'll definitely know it. There's no deciphering. There's no figuring things out. If a Brazilian woman likes you, you definitely gonna know it. they're
Hmm.
more direct. You can be direct in your communication with them, and they won't get spooked for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed a lot of dudes that have tried to give me advice on how to talk to women in Brazil, and they do the same games where they try to like manipulate and all that. I'm telling you, like that's not really necessary
It's
here.
not
Like it's
necessary.
you
You don't
just
need
you
that. You don't need to do that.
yeah, you'll end up running a lot of chicks off because they'll be like, "What the hell is wrong with this guy? Like, why is he
Right.
doing this like this?" You got to remember, you're in a different country and they do things differently, and they do it the right way, if you ask me.
Right.
Uh,
Sarcasm is not needed.
mhm,
Um, innuendo is not needed a lot of times.
mhm,
You can just come right out and just say what you're gonna say. You meet a
mhm,
girl on the street, you get her number, you can text her that night and she won't get spooked.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. So, what city in Brazil do you find has the warmest culture towards Americans, and why?
uh, I would say what city?
Yeah.
I would say Belo Horizonte in Minas Gerais. Belo Horizonte and Manaus, Brazil. I think those are some of the most laid back and friendliest people, especially in Minas Gerais. Though they have a reputation as being the friendliest people in Brazil.
What about them is more friendly than the people in Rio?
Uh, I don't know for sure. I mean, people in Rio are pretty friendly too, but Mineiras is what the people from Minas Gerais are called. They're in general the nicest people you ever want to meet, the most nicest and laid back people you ever want to meet. I went to a funk party. It's called a baile funk party for those who don't know. And funk is a type of rap music in Brazil. And it was mostly young people, but everybody was just chill. Everybody was just laid back. Wasn't nobody mean mugging. Wasn't nobody. Everybody was just laid back and just chilling, just cool. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. They're Sao Paulo doesn't seem as laid back, but Salvador, I can see how laid back Salvador was now that I'm here. But it's still not like being in the States, but it's a little leaning towards that way here. So how do Brazilian women perceive and interact with American men? Like, do you think there's an advantage, or do you like what is the experience that probably would be different than other places in the world?
It depends on where you are. It depends on where you are. If you're in Rio, like in Zona Sul, they're pretty much used to interacting with gringos. They're pretty much used to interacting with Americans. So it's
Hmm.
really not that much of an advantage. I haven't spent that much time in Sao Paulo, so I can't speak too much on it. But Sao Paulo is an international city. You got all types of people there. The further away you go from places like Rio and Sao Paulo, the more, number one, the more you need Portuguese, and number two, the more the differences kind of stand out.
Hmm. Okay, I would agree. I would agree with that. Yeah, let's go with that. I would agree with that. So, what challenges have you faced trying to adapt into Brazilian culture?
What challenges have I faced? Just some of the things we take for granted in the United States, don't really run that smoothly in Brazil. For example, business in Brazil moves slower.
Hmm.
Business
Hmm.
moves slower. There's more red tape. Uh, Customer service in a lot of places is poor. Uh, um, Security may be an issue in a lot of places, like in Rio. I've spoken to a lot of Brazilians. A lot of well-to-do Brazilians leave Brazil because they feel like there's no justice. Justice is not as efficient or not as effective, they say, as it is perhaps in the United States. And those are the few things. Those are all the other stuff is just minor stuff.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of Brazilians say that the justice here is not that effective. Like people doing serious crimes and then they do a serious small amount of time.
Right,
Something nowhere else in the world it would be that small.
right.
So yeah, that I could understand how that could frustrate a local enough to where they want to leave. Because in the United States, it does work. I mean, you had to be pretty damn rich to participate in corruption in the United States. So, but here, I think there might be a lot of places in the world. I think that might be a different case. So, can you describe a memorable cultural experience you had in Brazil that would only happen in Brazil?
A memorable cultural experience that would only happen in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think about that one.
For example, I remember going to a party and I seen a friend of mine, a guy that kissed like 7 girls in like 3 hours. And
Mhm.
that was kind of like, damn, like I would have never seen that in the States or really most places around the world. You wouldn't see that, but it's so free. That's their culture is very open to that. Have you noticed something? Have you had an experience similar to that you would have only seen in Brazil?
Well, okay. I'll tell you one. This happened like a year ago. I was in Rio. It was like a Saturday night, and I went out on the beach walk in Copacabana, just
Mhm.
going out there, people watching. You know what I'm saying? And this girl was sitting there selling popcorn, and she asked me to come sit with her. So I went to come sit with her, and I could tell she was a little tipsy. So we're chatting back and forth or whatever. And at one point, she grabs the back of my head and kisses me right in the mouth. I'm like, whoa,
Really?
that stuff like that happens every once in a while, and that doesn't happen. You don't encounter stuff like that in America too much.
No, very rare. And you said what city was that at?
It was in Rio in Copacabana.
Wow. Wow.
It was in Rio in Copacabana.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, but that sounds about right. I always tell people that's something that's gonna shock you. That's something that's to expect when you visit this place.
um, Physical touching. Brazilians in general are really touchy feely. I'm touchy feely in general, by nature anyway, but they're really touchy feely, especially if you're dating somebody or whatever. They're big on, they call it carinhoso, very,
Yeah.
very caring. Saying Americans are not really used to that type of, you know, that type of behavior.
We're not at all. Let me read this super chat. We got $50 super chat from Enes Simmons. He says, Dennis Jean-Pierre, have you met any other Haitians like yourself in Brazil?
I'm not Haitian. A lot of people ask me that. I'm not Haitian. My last name is Creole, Jean-Pierre, and my family's from Louisiana, hence my last name. So for those of you who are curious, I'm not Haitian. I was told that Jean-Pierre is a Haitian name, but I myself am not Haitian. I'm from United States. My family's from the United States. But I have met Haitians in Manaus, believe it or not. There's a small Haitian community in Manaus, Brazil.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. As a matter of
Wow.
fact, when I go there, people never suspect that I'm American. They think I'm either from Rio, from Bahia, or from Haiti.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, my family is from Louisiana, they're Creole too, my mother's side. So that's interesting. I didn't know that about your last name. Uh, so how does the cost of living in Brazil compare to that in the United States? Let's say where you're at in Chicago.
Uh, I get that question a lot. It depends on where in Brazil you live. If you live in Rio or Sao Paulo, it's going to be more expensive. But if you live in a smaller city, for example, I went to Maceió. Maceió is a beach city in the Northeast. You can get a luxury apartment there along the beach for $500 a month.
Really?
Yeah, for $500 a month. Whereas in Rio, depending on what neighborhood you live, if you live in Baja de Juca, you're going to be paying at least 2,000. At least
Wow.
depending on the neighborhood in Baja de Juca you live, you're going to be paying at least $2,000 for a luxury
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah, I've noticed that in Rio, if you want a beachfront, yeah, you're talking like 2,000. Like what one master teacher talks about, 2,000 for that area in Copacabana. But when I was in Salvador for 550, I could see the beach, smell the beach, and hear the waves.
Mhm.
And it was 550. You could save a lot of money. So the best. I'm sorry if you said this already. What is the best bang for your buck? What city is it?
It's called Maceió.
Maceió.
Maceió. It's between Salvador and Recife.
Oh, okay. And what is that city like? Would you say it was boring there, or?
No, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Very laid back, very interesting city. They got these small beach towns nearby. It's beautiful. It was beautiful. I liked it. Of
Wow.
course, it's not like Rio or nothing like that. Rio's unique. There's no place in Brazil like Rio. I mean, Rio's number one. But it's a nice place to take your significant other. It's a nice place to go if you get sick of Rio, sick of Sao Paulo. It's definitely worth going to visit.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. I never thought about going to that city. I'm actually planning to go back to Bahia probably soon, and I want to check out some other cities in the state besides Salvador. So I will check that out. So how do you manage your finances being a nomad? You usually spend 6 months in Brazil, 6 months in the States, right?
Yes.
So how would you say, what is your routine? How do you manage your money and live? Because I'm assuming that you live a little frugal when you're in the States, so you have more money in Brazil.
No, actually, I don't. I don't.
Really?
I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't have a budget anymore. You know, when I first started traveling to Brazil, that was the case. I did have to watch my money, but in the last several years, I haven't had to watch my money. I do affiliate marketing. I'm an internet marketer, and my income is to the point where I don't have to budget my money anymore. I can pretty much do whatever I want to do.
So how easy is that for other people that's watching that want to live the way you do? How easy is that for them to get in on that kind of business?
I mean, the barrier to entry is very low. The thing is, it's a lot of studying. It's a lot of watching videos. A lot of practicing. It's a learning curve, but once you master it, you got it. It's not
Wow.
difficult. You just have to put the effort and the money into it. The thing is that you can't start with nothing and do. It's like any other business. You can't start with nothing. You got that money coming from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
I see.
you have to have money coming from somewhere else. You have to spend money in order to make money with this business. But
Exactly.
once you master it, it's lovely.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to get into affiliate marketing myself to just have a extra stream of income as well. So I'm interested in that. So managing your finances in Brazil. So you said you don't have a budget, but what advice would you give to somebody to manage their budget in Brazil if they were staying like you 6 months out of the year?
Find out what your expenses are. Find
Hmm.
out what your expenses are, how much you're going to spend. Um, for example, if a person wants to live in Rio, you know what I mean, I would definitely say at least a couple $1,000s a month. If you want to live a decent existence without having to penny pinch, I would say $2,000 is pretty decent.
Yeah. What do you think about? What do you have to say to those guys? Basically, is what you just said. But why do you think some people listen to these people on YouTube and they hear like, oh, like you can live in Rio for $1,500 a month? That's your base. Like that's like surviving is $1,500 a month.
You can
Living
live in
is 500.
you can live in Rio for $1,500 a month, but where are you living and how are you living?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Exactly.
the question. I don't plan to live in. If I'm gonna live in Brazil, I'm gonna live as an upscale Brazilian. I'm not gonna live like a poor person. That defeats the purpose of being there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
that defeats the purpose. So if I'm going to live there, I'm going to live like an upscale person.
I would agree, and I keep trying to reiterate that to people. I know I live, like you said, I'm living an upscale lifestyle everywhere I go.
Right.
So that's the whole point. I'm not moving. I'm not trying to go backwards on the
Yeah, that
economic.
makes no sense.
Yeah, no, you can do it. You can do it for $1,500 a month, but you're not gonna like it.
Right. You want to enjoy yourself. You don't want to, you don't want to scrimp on everything. You want to be able to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it and with whom you want to do it with.
Exactly. I would 100% agree. I'm glad you see the same thing as well. So, what are the biggest cultural shocks you experienced when you first moved to Brazil for an extended period of time?
The biggest cultural shocks.
Mm-hmm.
When I first arrived there, the look of the people, the physical appearance of the people was pretty striking to me. That was number one.
Why do you say that?
Because you got people in Brazil who don't look like people you see in the United States. You know what I'm saying? The phenotypes that you see in Brazil, the physical phenotypes, you don't see it in Brazil. I mean, you don't see it in the United States. For example, you'll see a person with long, silky hair, brown skin, and hazel or blue eyes. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've noticed that. They definitely look different. Even the white people, that was the first thing I noticed. Like they were white, but they were like a different white. Like it was just something different about them.
When I see a white person in Rio, I can tell whether they're from there or not just based on their skin tone. Because if they're like pale white, they're probably not from there. If they got like a really nice tan skin, then they're probably carioca, because the sun does something to your skin down there, makes it look really beautiful.
Yeah, I would agree. So, how has Brazilian culture influenced your lifestyle now that you've been going there for 11 years and your perspective on the world?
Well, it's good to get outside of this box called the United States and see how other people live, see how other people think, and realize that, hey, I don't have to stay here and put up with stuff that I don't have to put up with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I cherish all my Brazilian friendships. I love all my Brazilian friends. The food, the culture, the weather, I'm more compatible with it there than I'm here. Now, some people may ask me, Dennis, why don't you just stay there permanently? I don't feel the need to stay there the entire year. And besides, I got my family I got my family here in the States. You know what I'm saying? I got, it's things here in the States that I do that I am appreciative for. But the reason why I leave Brazil is so that I don't take it for granted. Because coming back here, you gain a different perspective on what's important and what's not important.
I would agree. Me going back to the United States a few weeks ago, yeah, I forgot how different it is over there. Like I really forgot how different their culture is. So now I really appreciate everywhere I go. Just like you said, the longer you stay gone, you'll kind of become, I guess, detached from what's really going on in the States. Because it's one thing to see it on TV and to see it on social media, but to actually live and be there, it's a whole different experience. So, what are the key differences between social norms in Brazil and those in the United States? Like, for example, in Brazil, like you said, the people are just more warm. Like, that's the key difference. They're more outgoing. Uh, they don't mind showing affection. What are some other key differences between the social norms there versus here?
I would say they're generally more polite too.
Yes.
I'll say that they're in general, the Brazilian people are more polite than in general here in the United States. Case in point, I was with my best friend Tito just recently, and this old lady got hit by a car and broke her ankle. And she was lying in the street, and people from all around there on the street, stopped what they were doing to go help this lady. Whereas if that would have happened here in the United States, the same situation, people would be pulling out their phones trying to record. Nobody pulled out their phones trying to record. They were trying to help this lady, get an ambulance or whatever. But yeah, just in general, people are more polite. People tend to be more caring. If you make eye contact with people, they'll speak. It's just a social environment that'll make you spoiled. It'll make you spoiled. I mean, you really feel welcome. It's not. America is a cliquish, fear-based society where people are wary of strangers.
Yeah, very wary.
Wary of strangers, and they may have good reasons for being that way. But once you're exposed to that in Brazil, it's hard to come back here and deal with that again.
Yeah,
hard. As a matter of fact, when I just got back from Brazil 2 weeks ago, and I knew coming back here what to expect socially. I mean, I get here and I shut down a little bit socially because I know it's not going to have the same effect as it has down there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And when I go back to Brazil, it takes me a couple weeks to readjust back to that socially open atmosphere.
Yeah, you have to get comfortable with just being able to just speak to anybody when you return back to South America. Because, well, Brazil is the best for all of it, but I would say most of South America, except Bolivia, you can just speak to anybody in the elevator. You can speak to anybody walking down the street. Everybody in the cigar lounge or the restaurant speaks to you. I went to some in the States. You walk in, the damn employees don't even speak sometimes, and you're like, wow, that's a huge difference, man. It's very toxic to go back to the States. I don't know how you do it, but urban city height. Go ahead.
Can I say this before you get to that?
Yeah.
The question. Like I've been watching your other videos about the social climate, the comparison between down there, well, overseas in general, and the United States.
Yeah.
It's like America is somewhat. Am I allowed to curse on this platform?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like socially, it's kind of a mind fuck. Because socially, there's a problem, but you can't talk about it to nobody. Because if you talk about it to somebody, guess what? They're going to think you're the problem.
Yeah.
Even though you're not the problem. So in order to avoid ridicule, you stay quiet about it. And then the cycle continues. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly.
And unless you've been outside the United States and experienced it yourself, most people are not going to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna make it seem like you're crazy or like those people are just pretending to be
you. It must be you then.
Yeah, it must be you. And there's a lot of other people saying the same thing. It's crazy. So Dennis, Urban City Hiking says, Dennis, how do you divide your 6 months up in Brazil? Do you do 3 months in the spring and 3 months in the winter? Give advice on how you do it. Thank you for the super chat.
Well, normally I arrive in Brazil right after Christmas, before New Year's. I'll stay in Brazil for maybe 3 months, 4 months, come back to the States for a couple months, go back to Brazil in like August, stay there for 2 months, and then go back again in December. And I just rotate it like that.
Yeah. That's a good setup. So the next question is, and this is a good question. Do you see any cultural shifts happening in Brazil that may affect American expats? Like, is there some things that are starting to leak over from the U.S. culture to Brazil, some things that might be changing culturally that won't really benefit an American living there?
Not really. Brazilian culture is pretty strong. It's pretty strong. I don't see it. People say, you hear some dudes say, oh, feminism is taking over Brazil and, pretty soon everywhere is going to be the same. I don't necessarily.
Hold on, he fell off, you guys. Oh, there he goes. Okay. You said feminism taking over and what?
Feminism, you hear some guys say, oh, feminism is taking over in Brazil. Feminism is growing in Brazil. I don't see it gaining the traction that it does in the United States and elsewhere. I just don't see it happening because it's a big country. It's still a patriarchal society. The culture is pretty strong. The women there like and respect men for the most part. So it's really not something that needs to be worried about.
I would agree.
Just for me being there and being all over the place, it's really not something to be worried about.
Do you think that eventually, and it's so big that there's so many places you could run to, and if you wanted to, but do you think things like just the influx of Americans over time going there, more people in Brazil learning English and consuming American media and social media, and things like the Super Bowl. Do you think eventually that will put the cultures together or somewhat influence the culture?
Maybe a little bit, but not to the extent that people think. Maybe in pockets, in certain pockets, but not to the extent that people think.
Okay. Okay, I would agree. So how do Brazilians view American culture? Like, and what stereotypes do they hold about it? Like, for example, a stereotype that Americans have around the world is like, oh, they're dumb. They can't even name 10 countries around the world, which is a lot of times it's true. You know, a lot of us
Well,
don't even know where Brazil is at.
well, I've heard Brazilians describe us as very cold and businesslike, which is true
Yeah,
for the most part.
yeah,
Which is true. We're not very. A lot of us are not very animated as they are. We're not as as touchy feely or you know what I'm saying. We're not as gregarious as a lot of Brazilians are in general, and
hmm
they say we're very focused.
hmm
You know what I'm saying, which is true for the most part. Uh, they think that a lot of them think we're rich. I had
yeah,
a I had a Uber driver in Belo Horizonte. I was talking to him, and he literally thought the streets were paved with gold here in the United States. And I had to explain to him, no way, no way. I said, no, man, you got people, you got poor people, you got more poor people than people with money in the United States. You got poor
yeah,
people, you got rich people. Sure, you got a lot of rich people in the United States, but it's not what you think it is. You're gonna be
yeah,
working like
yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah, they think it's Dubai. You know, they think it's like
Yeah,
where they get rid of the homeless people. Like, no, we got homeless people attacking
yeah,
people on drugs. Like, I don't
yeah.
know where I don't. It's kind of ignorant for them. And you would think with social media and the internet like that, people wouldn't actually think that. You know, like who? Why did they? Maybe 50 years ago, but today I don't see how they could think
No.
that. Yanez Simmons said $20 for Dennis. Have you been to the DR? If yes, in your opinion, which country has the better looking women? Just curious for your opinion. Thank you for the super chat.
I have not been in Dominican Republic. I've been to Colombia once. A lot of people like to compare. A lot of guys like to compare Colombian women to Brazilian women. I will say this. I would say that Colombian women are prettier, but Brazilian women are sexier. You know what I'm saying? To use a boxing analogy, I've said this before several times before on other podcasts. To use a boxing analogy, Colombia is faster and quicker, but Brazil hits harder.
I would 100% agree. Now, Colombia does have some sexy, beautiful women too, but it's in Brazil. You can't get away from it. You can they're dedicated to the gym, and
I think
there's
Brazil has more variety too.
more variety. Like for example, when I was in Medellin, I was complaining about it, and I said, "Oh, all these girls look like cousins. Like they all look alike." And
Right.
people were trying to argue me, no, they don't. White skin, black hair.
Mm-hmm.
All of them had that, just about 90%. So, but if you go to Cali, Cali, Colombia, you get a little more diversity, but it's not like Brazil. Like I can walk outside here in Sao Paulo and I can see a white girl with green eyes and ginger, and then I see the same woman with brown eyes and
Mm-hmm.
then with blue eyes. And like I was saying earlier, Salvador, Rio, all that stuff is completely different. And Belo Horizonte has a lot of mixed girls with the curly fros and the blonde hair. Like it's completely different
Yeah.
when it comes to the variety in Brazil. So my next question was, how has your experience in Brazil affected your identity as a Black American man?
Say that again. How's my
How has
experience? What?
how has your experience in Brazil affected your identity as a Black American man?
Not at all. Not at all. It hasn't affected anything. My identity as a Black American male, not at all.
Good, good.
Not at all.
So when it comes to mindset, what advice would you give to other Black Americans that are considering moving to Brazil?
Well, before you move there, before you decide to move there, visit a few times. Because I get
Mhm.
this question sometimes on my channel. Don't just up and move to Brazil. Visit a few times. Uh, Meet people, make connections, see the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there is ugly. And then make a decision on whether you want to move there or not. Don't just up and just move there because you don't know anything. You don't know anybody. You don't know the ins and outs yet. You don't know who's who and what's what. You know, visit a few times first, and then decide on whether you want to live there or not.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of already answered this question. So, what are some common misconceptions that Americans have Brazil? Same way they think that the streets are paved with gold for whatever reason. What are some things that people think about Brazil? I'll give you one example: is the HIV rate. You know, the United States has
Yeah,
a higher HIV rate than Brazil.
yeah, I've heard that one. I've heard that. Oh, those women down there don't like you. They just want a green card. I get so sick of hearing that. Let me tell
It's
y'all
old.
something. It's old. Let me tell y'all something. And I have a lot. I think I have a lot of authority to speak on this. A lot of the women down there don't want to come to the United States. Okay, they don't want to come to the United States. They don't want to leave their family, their culture, their language to go to another country with some gringo they barely know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So sure, you got some of them that do want to, but most of them don't. Most of them don't. They will prefer that you come live there with them.
yeah.
Another misconception that I hear a lot, or the Brazilian women are easy, which is for the most part not true.
Yeah.
That Brazil is this sexually promiscuous place or whatever. I would say that most of Brazil is pretty conservative.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're talking about Rio is, for example, hookup culture. You know what I'm saying? But other cities in Brazil are not like that.
Mm-hmm. For example, I went on a date last night, and the chick, you know, usually if you go on a date with a chick, this is worldwide, and she goes with you from one spot to the next. The third spot is the house. But
Right.
we went from one spot to the next, and she wasn't even trying to give me a kiss, but she was like, "Let's meet again tomorrow."
Yeah.
You know, like so it wasn't that same hookup culture like it is in Rio. Even Salvador moves at a way slower pace, and Recife as well. So that is kind of Rio. That's just like the hookup culture like that. I mean, you can hook up anywhere, but
Right.
on
But in
as a
general,
station, yeah.
case
So,
in
huh?
one more thing.
Huh?
Like like when I went to Salvador, one of the things I was running into is that one of the first questions a lot of the women ask me is that, do you live here, or are you just passing through? And then when you tell them that you're passing through, they immediately lose interest. You know what I'm saying? So they want somebody that's there. You know what I'm saying? They don't want somebody just gonna smash and dash.
Yeah, I would agree. So, Timothy O'Reilly sent €5. He says you could only live in Rio on $15 a month if you had a roommate who was also earning the same amount and you split bills. Do you believe that?
Yeah, again, it depends on where in Rio you live.
Yeah.
It depends on where. What neighborhood are you staying in? Are you staying in Zona Sul? Are you staying in or near favela? Where are you living?
I tell you what, for $1,500 a month, you can live great if you move to Madrueta. Last time I was over there was a dude outside directing traffic with a tech
Wow.
and a mask on.
Wow.
Yeah. But you can survive all 1,500 there for sure. So can you talk about the Brazilian concept of jeitinho and how it impacts daily life?
Jeitinho,
Mm-hmm.
the Brazilian way.
Mm-hmm.
In what regard? O jeitinho brasileiro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Like
what?
like for example, you talked about how things move slower, and like that's we're just in Brazil. You know, that's just how it is here. Well, how does that affect your daily? How does the Brazilian way and the way how they do things? How do you notice your life is different? Like in the United States, everything is prompt, on time, early. You know, everything is efficient.
Well, like I said, your patience will get tested in Brazil. Your
Mm-hmm.
patience will get tested. There have been many instances where I almost lost my cool, but I had to stop and remind myself, hey, I'm not in the United States, I'm in Brazil, things work differently here. And I calmed down. So as long as you recognize that fact, there are some things that are aggravating, like some Brazilian business people, or when you do business with some Brazilians, they try to do the bait and switch tactic on you. You know what I'm saying? Case in point, my man Al Grease, he asked me to put him on with a person who rents boats. So I put him on with a guy who rents boats in Rio. So when Al Grease gets to Rio, he rents a boat from the guy, but the guy brings him a different boat than what he ordered. So that type of stuff, little stuff like that, or people trying to take advantage, stuff like that. But to me, the positives outweigh the negatives. The positives outweigh the negatives.
So would you say that's that maybe that doesn't happen to Brazilians amongst themselves? Maybe they're just doing that because
it does. It does.
It
I mean,
does.
it happens amongst Brazilians. You get what we call gringo gouging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where if they know you're a gringo, they'll try to charge you more.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's there's the gringo price, then there's the Brazilian price. So you'll get situations like that. So as long as as long as you're cognizant of that, if you feel like you're getting scammed or whatever, it's best to you either walk away from the deal or speak up about it.
I would agree. Absolutely. So, and you said learning Portuguese has made your experience in Brazil a lot more comfortable, and it's
Absolutely.
just been better for you to connect. It's just like the Mexicans and the whatever other people that come from other parts of the world come to the United States and they don't know English. Like, yeah, you can succeed in your own community, that 5 or 10 blocks that y'all got, but you can't really ever integrate and really succeed and have the true American experience, which is shit if you ask me. But you can never really have that if you don't know English. But in Brazil, the same thing. If you only hang around Americans, you don't have any Brazilian friends, you never really experience Brazil without knowing that Portuguese. And that's what makes it what it is. So what is the expat community like in Rio, and how has it supported you over time? Or have you been the person that's supported since you've been there for so long?
I mean, I've supported and I've received support from, some of the brothers that I've met in Brazil, and some of the people who are, and the other people that in other American expats in Brazil. I mean, we all tend to gravitate towards each other. Mm-hmm. If we don't know each other directly, we know of each other. You know what I'm saying? And even when I travel to other cities in Brazil, I may run into an American here or there. And like I said, we tend to gravitate towards each other. But like if we need resources or whatever, or if we need more information about how to do something, we'll turn to one of the expats and ask them, hey, who do I go to get such and such, or do this or do that, and they'll tell you for the most part. So that's the good part. But I'm trying to acclimate myself to Brazilian culture. So I try to develop friendships with Brazilians and not just Americans.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing I did in Kenya. It's very, like we said earlier, it changes your experience. I got a haircut earlier at the barber shop, and I was able to talk to the barber the entire time. I learned about him. He learned about me. So it's different. It's just different. I think it's kind of obvious the point that we're getting at. So did you ever have homesickness or, a cultural fatigue while you were living in Brazil?
Yes.
I don't think you had home. You had homesickness from the United States.
Not homesickness, but burnout.
Yeah.
Burnout. Because, for example, when I'm in Rio, I get burnout almost every time I go there. Because in Rio, there's so much stimulus, and you have to be cognizant of so many things. You get mentally burnt out, And then in some instances, language barrier may be a problem. Like, I may be speaking to somebody and I may not understand everything that they say, or they may not understand everything that I say. Mm-hmm. So that can cause a problem. That can cause you to get burnout. You have to slow down. I spend a lot of time in Brazil. I have a difficulty slowing down because you can't be in party and activity mode all the time. You know what I'm saying? So you have to slow down. You have to, you can't be in festive and party mode all the time. It's one thing to vacation the spot, another thing to live there.
Yeah, I would say, like, for example, I've already kind of formed a little circle of friends and some stuff to do here in Sao Paulo. Mm-hmm. And man, I was supposed to do, not with you, but I was supposed to do an interview with El Guapo. 2 days in a row, I haven't been able to do it because I just been getting caught up, and I have to learn this. I had to take all my might to be like, let me find another interview right now and do this before my damn channel starts falling off. Because Brazil will
Right.
have you thinking, let me switch my career so I can just stay outside and hang out all the time. But
Right.
yeah, you'll get burned out from that. And about the cultural fatigue with the burnout reel, like you said, that's what happened to me when I was in Africa, man. Like their culture, they have I don't know, how can I say this without sounding like an asshole? They have a culture of like them trying to get over a lot in Africa, especially West Africa. Like the whole gringo menu, like that shit's on easy mode over here. Like in Africa, you will become burnt out from how often somebody's trying to get over.
Yeah,
And
that gets tired. That gets
yeah,
tired.
I mean, when I was in West Africa, I was like, bro, are you fucking kidding me? Like, like there's no,
It's insulting.
yeah, it's very insulting. And it's like, if you do, and this is worldwide, if you were to do business with me the right way, like I got a YouTube channel, I could be promoting your stuff, you could be getting more business. You stop all that when you do, and that's what makes it insulting. So, the next part is, what are the biggest differences that you notice dating in between Brazil versus the United States?
Wow. Wow. Like I said, the biggest differences is that if a Brazilian woman likes you, you're gonna know it. There's no deciphering. There's no, trying to, read the play. It's clear as day. If a Brazilian woman likes you, you're gonna know it. If she doesn't like you, you're gonna know that too. So you don't have to waste time. They tend to be more. They're more. I find Brazilian women to be more affectionate, more easygoing, more feminine, in general than American women are. Of course, there are American women that have these qualities too. So don't nobody jump down my throat about that. But you find more of that in Brazil than you do in the United States. I would say that Brazilian women do not have the hang-ups about sex that a lot of American women have. For example, if a Brazilian woman likes you and she's feeling you, you know what I mean, and she's sexually attracted to you, more than likely you're gonna 9 times out of 10, you guys are gonna, complete the transaction, complete the deed, not the transaction, the deed, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, we got to stay deed because they watching my channel while I'm out here.
Right. So yeah, they just don't have the hang-ups. They don't have a problem showing affection. They don't have a problem showing their interest in men. A lot of Brazilian women like and have respect for men. And those are the main differences. Those are the main differences.
I would agree with everything you said. It feels just very natural, very the way how it's supposed to be when you're talking to women here.
It feels totally natural, and you can be direct with them. You can state exactly what you're thinking. Like I've told Brazilian women on many occasions, "Hey, listen, I like you. I want to see you again," and they don't get spooked. You can just say that flat out. They won't get spooked.
Yeah,
try saying that to a typical American woman. She'll you might not see her again.
Even if you don't see her again, she's gonna do all she can to make you look like a damn idiot for saying that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So and then over there, that them making you look like an idiot, somebody's told them that that's attractive and that should make the man, well, if he really likes you, if you make him look stupid, he should pursue you more. Yeah, fuck that. So urban
before you move on, let me say this. You said something a few weeks back. You said that some girls here in the States, they don't want to affirm you. They don't want to affirm men or give you compliments because they say they don't want you to get big-headed. Yeah. Which is stupid.
Yeah.
A Brazilian woman has no problem giving you compliments, telling you you're beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They don't want anything that makes a man confident in the States. They shutting that shit down. That's against the law. So we got a super chat from Urban City Hiking. He says, Dennis, would you recommend bringing a Brazilian wife to live in America?
I recommend you moving to Brazil and live with her. You could. It depends. You know what? It depends on the woman and her character. You know what I'm saying? It depends on the woman and her character. If you can vouch for her, if you can properly vet her, and she seems like a woman that will not switch up on you when she gets back to the States, then it can work. But in general, no. I'd rather you find a way to live in her habitat.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a live stream recently with a guy that I met in Dallas, that he went to the DR and brought his wife back, and he was just saying, like what you're saying, like you have to be able to vet them. It's a big risk, but you
It's a
had to
big
be able to
risk.
vet them. But I guess honestly, when we start weighing the options, if you have the option to live in a Brazil or another country, your life is going to improve because you're not going to live like the average Brazil. You're going to live at the top, so I don't see why I would go back to the States and pay uh, $20 for us to go to McDonald's when I can go pay $20 and we can go eat at, like, let's say a 3 or 4 star restaurant.
I mean, I understand that not every guy is set up to do what we do.
Yeah.
Some guys got jobs and careers back here in the States, so they can't just up and just leave, just up and just leave and go live in Brazil. That's a huge risk.
Yeah.
So bringing a woman back, maybe they're the only viable option for them. But if you're going to do that, you make sure you vet her properly.
Got to. You got to. So my next question for you is, how do you stay connected with your roots and culture while living abroad? You kind of already answered that one. So what role does music and dance play in your experience? Samba?
Major. That's part of the whole culture. Music, dance, festivities. I mean, that's a major part of the culture. Major.
Yeah, I would agree. Like the samba, the just the drums and all the instruments that they use. Brazilian music, like the what is it, the pagode, the samba, bossa nova,
forró.
Yeah, all that stuff is just very Brazilian. Like it just sounds, the way how it sounds is how you feel when you're here too. And they play it all throughout the street.
Yeah.
They play it all over the street. They don't, I mean, some places will play American music, but they have their own culture. That's what I love about it. Yeah. So JX said, Dennis, what are your top 3 cities in Brazil?
Rio de Janeiro, Manaus, and João Pessoa.
Okay, I'm going to João Pessoa. What did you like about that one?
It's a very, very nice beach town with a decent nightlife, which surprised me. They have this huge nightclub up there called Priscilla's Hall. That shocked me. The beaches are very nice. They're really starting to develop the beachfront, the beach area, and it's a good place to take a significant other. Very good place.
Let me ask you this. How easy is it solo traveling through Brazil? Like, because I'm about to do a lot of solo traveling through Brazil. How easy is it for you to just be dropped off in another city and just build a social circle? How long does that take?
It usually takes me about 3 or 4 days to get my bearings in a new city. Like I have no problem talking to people. I have no problem talking to strangers. So, if I want to meet a young lady, whatever, either I'll cold approach in the street or I'll get on Tinder and meet somebody and they'll show me around. That's how I found out about this place, Priscilla's Hall, that huge nightclub. I met a girl on Tinder and she took me there. Took me to a couple places. So it don't take long. It doesn't take long at all.
Okay, we got one more super chat from JX. He says, where would Dennis go if he couldn't stay in Brazil anymore and why?
Where would I go if I couldn't stay in Brazil anymore? That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I never gave that much thought. I've only been to a few countries, so I can't really compare too much. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, if I couldn't come back to Brazil, it would have been Chile, Kenya, Peru. It'd been one of those, Chile, Kenya, Peru. It'd been one of those 3, but you see, I was willing to walk over the border and see what was going on. And yeah, I'm back. And I'll be back, and I'll be coming back many times.
Hold on one second, Austin. I gotta switch up my camera.
Okay.
Hold on.
So you guys, if you guys have any questions for the guests, make sure you drop a $5 super chat. You can be read. I am not reading the chat. So if you ask a question, you don't donate a $5 super chat, we will not be asking the guest. And yeah, you ask But yeah,
Okay.
we can do an interview about Chile as well. I can bring somebody that's in Chile as well. So my last question for you is, what are your future plans on living in Brazil? And do you see your relationship with the country improving, evolving, getting better? Like, do you ever plan to say, I'm going to just leave and never go back to the States and live in Brazil?
Well, like I said, I'm content being in Brazil 6 months a year. Right now, I don't feel the need to be there the entire year. Right now, my goal is to get a apartment in Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro will be my base. And then when I
Okay.
get tired of it, I just hop on a plane and go somewhere else. I mean, part of the reason why I'm traveling, I travel to all these cities, is to discover where I can go when I get tired of Rio.
Mhm, mhm,
Because
mhm.
Rio burns you out. Rio can burn you out. So if I get tired of Rio, I can hop on a plane and go to João Pessoa. I can go to Manaus. I can go to Fortaleza or wherever. So now that I've pretty much narrowed down my favorite spots, that's the game plan. Get my own place in Rio and go from there.
I would agree. I would agree. I think traveling, like you said, traveling to many locations just opens your mind to having just different backup plans that you can go to when your main one is done. I doubt it, but if I ever got tired of Brazil, I would go to Chile. You know, that's another South American country that has a. I would Brazilian vibe is hard to match, man. It has
It
a.
is.
It's similar, but there's not a. There's like
Not the
I don't
same.
remember. I don't remember any Chilean music. You know, I don't remember that. But the first time I came to Brazil, everywhere I would pull out the Shazam, like I need to know this song, I need to know that song, I need to have all this. I would go back to the States and work out to Pagoji music and all that stuff. So a better question may be, what country would give an experience like Brazil overall? The closest I think I got to it worldwide, the closest, and nothing, and we're talking close meaning like 80%, and that was Kenya. But everywhere else in the world, the closest it got to being like Brazilians culture was like, well, that experience was like 50%. So it's not even close.
I would say Cape Verde, Cabo Verde too.
Yeah. Well, why do you say that about Cabo Verde?
The people are very friendly, extremely friendly, extremely. They have their own music, their own culture as well. And again, you feel like a family member when you're there.
Okay. Okay. So one more super chat. Austin, have you thought about checking out Albania? Yes, I was supposed to do that. It's extremely cheap to go to. I think that's the cheapest country I've seen, at least in Europe. So yeah, thank you for the super chat. So you guys, that's all the questions I have for Dennis today. Dennis, I appreciate you coming through. If you guys have any more questions, I'll give you guys 5 more minutes to send the questions to a super chat. Uh, we can't do a call-in show today because I have somewhere to go right after I end this interview, and I gotta be there. So, do you have anything else you want to say to the audience? Shout your channel out, future plans.
My channel is DJP. I still got some more videos to drop. I haven't dropped a video in over a month because I just been just overwhelmed with so much stuff. But I still got some material left to drop from People Beach and from Natal, Brazil. So I'm gonna be dropping those within the next couple of weeks. My future plans right now, I'm back in the States. I'm taking care of a lot of business, getting some loose ends tied up, trying to, lose a little bit of weight, get in better shape. And I'll be back in Brazil in August.
Okay, so how was that weather in August in Rio?
Uh, the weather is very inconsistent in Rio and during the summertime. The temperature can get down to the low 60s, and it can get up to the hundreds. It varies. One week it'll be hot, the next week it'll be cold. So it's
Yeah.
not consistent. And also it gets dark earlier. It gets dark around 4:30 during the wintertime, which I don't like.
Yeah, it's like that here right now, where when 3 o'clock rolls around, it seems like it's 7 p.m. So last super chat from Dark Sun Bright One sent $5. But Dennis, you are an inspiration to us newbies going to Brazil. I now look forward to it. All I hear about Brazil is crime. I appreciate Austin. Thank you very much. I appreciate you as well. And do you have a comment you want to make about the comment he made about crime?
Yeah, I mean, listen, every place in Brazil is not dangerous, okay? Contrary to what a lot of people think. Of course, in the big cities, Sao Paulo, Rio, Salvador, you know, crime is a problem. But every place in Brazil is not dangerous, okay? I've never had nothing, knock on wood, I've never been robbed or anything like that. I had one situation with the police in Fortaleza a few years ago. And I'll tell you how that went down. I was getting in an Uber. I was in an Uber on my way to the beach. This beach that was 15 minutes away. Halfway through the trip, the police pull us over. The police jump out the car with their guns drawn. Now, this is around the George Floyd. This is around that time, the George Floyd situation. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm in the backseat. I'm looking behind me. I'm looking, oh shit, I hope they don't start shooting. So they told us to get out the car. Me and the driver got out the car. So we're out behind the car like this, right? And so I'm standing there, and one of the officers said something to me, but I couldn't understand what he was telling me. And then he got louder. So I'm getting a little nervous, like, damn, what the hell is he saying to me? And the driver, he looked back. He said, do this, spread your legs. So I spread my legs. They searched me, searched the driver, searched the car, talked to him. And then they looked at me and they went like this, and it was over. And I'm like, okay. So we get in the car, and I asked the driver, what the hell was that? He said, you know, some people use Ubers to commit crimes here. You know what I'm saying? Commit robbery. So I'm like, wow. So if they see a car with a passenger in the back and they don't like what they see, they'll pull you over.
That's exactly what happened to me then. I haven't heard that story because it was exactly what you just said. I mean, they just put the gun in my face so close I could smell the gunpowder. But I didn't know that people use Ubers to commit crimes. So that may be an explanation on why me and my friend went through that experience. It was crazy. You know, it was crazy. It was shit. I was shook for the rest of the trip, which was only 2 more days left. But obviously, it's so great in Brazil, not shook enough to leave.
Right. I mean, it's you have to be a little bit more cognizant in places like Rio, Sao Paulo. But again, I've never been robbed or nothing like that, never been assaulted. I'm not saying that it cannot happen. Of course, anybody can get got, but it's not something I'm overly worried about. I'm more concerned here in my home city, Chicago, than I am down there. I feel more safer down there than I do here in Chicago.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, I appreciate you coming through today. I think those are all the super chats that we have. And whenever you get back to Brazil, more than likely I'll still be here. I'll go to Europe for a little bit in the Middle East, and then I'll come back this way because this is where I need to be at.
For sure.
Well, thank you for coming on again, man. I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me. Peace.
Yes, sir. All right, you guys. Thank you for all. Let's see. We got 582 people watching. I think maybe 80 of those are on Twitter. So let's see, about 81 of those people are on Twitter. So I appreciate everybody that came through. And if you guys have not already, if you plan to come to Brazil, yes, we will have a Sao Paulo travel guide, but we also already have a Rio travel guide. We have a Salvador Bahia travel guide. We have a, what's the other one? I think we just have Rio and Salvador because those are my favorite places that I had the most information to put in about so far. So if you guys are interested in coming to Brazil, pick up the travel guide in a way so that way you could know exactly what to do when you get to those 2 cities, soon to be 3, and you know exactly what to avoid, how to save money, who to avoid, where to avoid, everything that you need to know that you would get in a consultation. I put in a travel guide, and it's only like $30. $30 versus a $250 consultation. You make the decision on which one is worth the money. I put it down there in the chat. If you guys want to see the travel guide, you click on it. There's also a spinner where you can get a major discount up to 70% off. So if it's $30, you might get that travel guide for somewhere around like $7 or $8 if you use a spinner. So if you are interested in that, click it. And I love you guys. I will see you guys next time. And we will do another interview tomorrow. I got to stay on track. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.